We will have one currency that all countries will agree on.
We are in one boat.
It's not just a currency, but it's also a political influence.
I don't think the problem is the dollar itself.
Back to the exchange economy.
100% in the past 5%.
Hello everyone and welcome to eTalk. Today I'm pleased to be joined by three experts from three different countries. We have with us Haja from Algeria, who is an engineer. We also have with us Zenia, who's from Russia and the Netherlands, and she is an urbanist as well as an international relations expert. And we have with us Sharif from Egypt, who is a PhD in international relations, also an MBA and a business owner. Thank you so much for joining. We observe that the US has increasing debt and that Wall Street is betting on Fed rate cuts. How is all of this going to impact you, me, and the global economy? Let's watch a short video.
China is not U.S. priorities. In fact, the biggest problem the U.S. face is a burgeoning national debt. The United States' national debt is shaping up to be this decade's hallmark. Now it's nearly $34 trillion, and the deficit spiked in 2020. Net interest payments on the debt climbed by 39% and recently surpassed $1 trillion annually. The repercussions of the national debt crisis are not merely theoretical, they are tangible, affecting the everyday lives of citizens. Now is not the time to allocate excessive resources to confront external foes, but to address the fundamental issue plaguing us, a government that refuses to rein in spending of taxpayer money. America should also correct the errors in recent years of trade protectionism, according to an article published in the US-based Eurasian Review. Wall Street believes that the Fed's current cycle of interest rate hikes has ended, and the possibility of a rate cut in March is more than 60%.
The dollar is seen as less credible a currency on the global level, right? There seems to be a shift. What do you think that can mean for US debt? I mean, because they can print as many dollars as they want, and that has other implications.
As long as there's US dollars in your country, it's not just a currency, but it's also a political influence that there is some sort of influence or control, maybe a really small control at that scale in your country. What's happening in Israel and Palestine, the war, you can see a lot of countries are not happy with it. They're not happy with what the United States is doing, which is to support Israel with the tragedies that is happening, as they were to say. And they're doing it one step at a time. Obviously, the one step is going through gold. You just convert the money into gold because that's safe. And that's one way of de-dollarization of each country.
Quickly, that I think with this kind of power comes a certain moral responsibility,
Yes.
which the perception in many parts of the world is that the US is not handling itself in a very morally superior manner.
Yes.
And that can lead to resistance. So I think no country should overestimate its strength in this way.
Yes, exactly. So this is one way of how they do it, maybe from an individual perspective, not as a global, like the nation perspective, not nationwide, but just
Normal people.
The people themselves. They start to do something about it, whether it's boycotting certain companies, shops, whatever it is, but they are doing something about it. And in the long run, this will obviously dismantle the economy of the US. Obviously, they will lose all credibility, and it's not going to be good for it.
There is a disenchantment, not even disenchantment. Sometimes it's...
a lot of people would question, why is my tax money going to certain things that does not improve our lives in the States, for example. The subway system in the States, I mean, all these things, they require money, and
health system,
and the health system
crime
as well.
Rates, I mean, even
Exactly.
education is
and
so
also
expensive.
homelessness, all of these are factors that they should consider, and they should change their way of spending their money and not just fully investing in one thing that is obviously a failure.
Power.
Yeah.
But when you have that kind of administration, then poverty, inflation, homelessness, hunger, etc., are not priority areas. So there is also, I think, a big conflict of what people around the world expect the role of the United States to be, and what is actually, when we sit and have a conversation, it should be perhaps more inwards.
Yes, maybe.
For any country. Obviously, the economy, any economy will be affected if its currency has lower value than it did before, right? And we see that kind of trend in the dollar. But also, I mean, what do you think about these other trends you're observing? What is a good way for the US to actually protect American interests with the dollar in mind, with other interests of theirs globally in mind?
About that, the system that we live in, the globalized world that has been shaped, that is extremely interdependent, as COVID has proven. We are in one boat, and we may want to change the boat by sinking the one we have and choosing another one, but we have to realize we're all in this boat. The dollar became such a dominant currency for a reason of the past, in my basic understanding, right, in layman terms, that the US economy was extremely strong, stronger than any other economy in the world at that time, right? So the government bonds is the safest investment in a way, right? And on those perceptions is basically that the entire economy was built up, which then eventually made it possible for globalization to happen, for global trade to happen.
So there's a lot of talk about so-called de-dollarization. Do you actually think we are moving towards de-dollarization?
I don't think the de-dollarization itself yet is an agenda item, but it's a consequence of an ongoing shift and a search for a shift, because we don't, like, we all know something is changing, right? We all know that, you know, the US status quo as an economic monopoly in a sense, right? The countries, entities, and people that want to de-dollarize are, for the most part of it,
protecting
are motivated
themselves
by the wish of becoming independent from the politics that the dollar comes with.
Perhaps they could learn it from China, for example. They could learn to do foreign investments in certain areas. For example, in Egypt, they could invest in Egypt, or they can invest in any other country. I mean, that's one way of, you know, stabilizing the currency and having the power of the currency.
So most of the countries are trying to break free from that control, the US control. And by de-dollarization, that gives them the opportunity to actually break free. So that's why most of the countries, especially the BRICS countries like Russia and China, now they trade in their own currencies, using their own currencies. So yeah, maybe in the future, not the near future, obviously, we will have one currency that all countries will agree on. So for the future, we're not sure, but for now, most of the economics are agreeing that de-dollarization is the correct solution to take, or the correct step.
Today, we tried to dissect some of the important debates that are coming up when it comes to the topic of de-dollarization. How desirable and how possible is it for countries and regions to de-dollarize? What are the incentives? And if moving forward, we have to think of one alternative, do we even have the global consensus? What next? And if not, then perhaps the next step is for countries to think of solutions between each other, and gradually we can move in a space where one country can dominate us less than it does today. What are your thoughts? What do you think about the dollar hegemony? And do you see de-dollarization as an increasing, but also a desirable trend? Let us know your thoughts. Thank you for watching.